Bonsoir. Merci. Merci, merci, merci. Ça fait plaisir de vous.
Thank you, and good evening to you all. It's a really great pleasure to have you here in Fontainebleau for this 10th edition or season of the Série Festival. We've seen each other on Teams or Zoom or Skype, and we're finally reconnecting for real, physically. And what goes on here stays here. But in any case, it really feels good. And this, of course, is the result of the unshaking passion, determination, and talent of she without whom we would not be here, our Déléguée Générale, Marie Baraco, and her team. Thank you. Oh, come on. Thank you. Yeah, I'm already pretty uncomfortable. You've managed to make me even more uncomfortable with this. So I have written a few words because I'm not very good at this. How happy I am to see you all here tonight. I don't know whether you missed Fontainebleau, but we definitely missed you powerfully. For the past 2 years, we have tried to move mountains, we've reinvented ourselves, we've honed new skills, developed a digital platform, produced a television show or an online show about a TV series, and I think we've managed to preserve that link and to preserve this event into which we put a lot of our personality, a lot of our heart, a lot of our flesh, and with making its DNA truly unique. We wanted to be there, wanted to stay there, even if it was just on screen, and it's such a fantastic reward to see you. And I must admit that 2 months ago, I still really didn't believe it. They said, okay, there would be masks, and then they would say, sorry, you can't do it, and all be together in a theatre. And it has happened, so thanks. I would also like to thank all of those who followed us throughout the storm, our financial partners particularly. My daughter is here on the festival. She's a volunteer, and she says, I don't get it. Where did you get the money? And I said, well, you know, some people pay for these festivals to exist because they believe in it, this kind of utopia, that we believe that creation is important, that writers, that authors are important people, and we don't need to have something huge to make it good, and creating connections between people. Sometimes it's you made a little bit of a pun here, but I said, you know, rubbing shoulders, flesh to flesh, and I think it's a really good thing that we should have it here, and that a bunch of crazy people believe in it, and they are really, I know who they are, and then the Île-de-France regional government has been with us from inception of this festival 10 years ago, and they said, okay, go ahead, you have carte blanche. There have been political changes in the regional council, but they've continued to believe in it, even if it's not happening in Fontainebleau. And even the city of Fontainebleau continued to provide funding to Série, its online version, even though it wasn't actually happening in its city. And the tourist board and the region. There's also funding from private copy, from SACEM, SACD, which supports us very strongly and assists the authors for whom we're working for with this festival, and then ProCirep, and then all of the partners here up on the screen. I won't name them all. And by France Télévisions, which is also represented here tonight. And thanks to whom we're going to be showing a great show. They'll come along and tell you more about it, and Pierre will be interviewing the team. I would also like to give very special thanks, because your applause goes to everyone. I have an amazing team. I don't know if they're here. I'm a bit tired and emotional. We haven't had much sleep these past few days. It's a bit pathetic. Sorry about that. They didn't count their time. They're the girls, and we even have boys now, which is new. You can see them around, and it was really tough this year, let me know. And the editorial committee here of Série, I'd like to invite them up on stage. We've been working together for the past 10 years together. And we're talking about commitment in the general interest. You know, at least I make a living out of this, and they don't get much out of it apart from a free drink from time to time. Série is all a big family. You're a family. I hope you can really feel that. We meet regularly. We have a couple of drinks. We digress, as my team says. But I think that's how we can construct meaningful things. We don't always agree. We like to debate. I think we all have a passion for what we do. I'm a huge fan of all of you as writers, producers, broadcasters, for creating all of these works that draw in millions of people and that help culture to spread around. And that's it, really. I think we would say we wouldn't be here if Marie wasn't here, because she's really the beating heart of Série, and when she says, oh, come on, let's do this, let's find ideas, she always has the nice meal, the nice bottle of wine, the nice smile, and the nice ideas. And to be honest, I have seldom met anyone so generous in her open-mindedness, in her personal relationships, and I think we're very fortunate. She's exhausted, but I think she does deserve another round of applause. Enjoy it. I hope you'll enjoy Fontainebleau. Thank you, Marie, Nicolas Jorel, Jean-François Boyer, and Philippe Triboire. Who was here tonight? Excused, Camille de Casseno, Camille Cozzi, Nathaniel Méchali, and Hervé Admar are excused. So, we're about to discover episode 1 of a highly prestigious show, a French, Spanish, Italian show created by Frank Spotsness and Steve Thompson about one of the world's greatest geniuses, Leonardo da Vinci. I think today's world would deserve a genius such as him, and then we'll have the great pleasure to discuss things with a great creator, Frank Spotsnitz, who will be with us tonight. First of all, perhaps a couple of pictures from this new episode.
Voilà, c'était donc
So that was in fact a previously of this first day. You will have noticed that Europe, rather than the Euro, we had the team from Stiesel from Israel, Bad Apples from Finland. We had Work in Progress from Spain, Iceland, Finland. Salto's Lineup, France Télé International, Bisha Kai Ali, and multiple screenings and encounters with the audience who were there, which is what makes Fontainebleau so special. But without, of course, without Fontainebleau, everything won't be so beautiful. And I'd like to ask you to welcome Frédéric Valtou, Mayor of Fontainebleau, who was also kept very busy as President of the Federation of French Hospitals. The Mayor of Fontainebleau. So, every year I make speeches with tears and laughter. I pronounce speeches that are smart and subtle, but I decided that for this 10th edition I would keep things short and sweet. And just say how happy I am to see you again here in Fontainebleau. 10 years seems like a long time in a city that has a history that spans across many centuries. But when you think of the energy it takes to organize just one of these events, one of the editions of Série, well, 10 years of hard work, tenacious courage, and determination to invite personalities, creatives from all over the world, businesses to come with us, to convince local governments, and it's great of them to continue to be interested in what is going on here. And as Pierre has just done, I would also like to just encapsulate my speech in hoping, with other elected representatives, that you will enjoy your stay in Fontainebleau, that you will discover and learn to love this town. But I would also like to extend heartfelt thanks to Marie and her team, to the editorial committee, and to all of those who have believed in the little city of Fontainebleau, who believed that it was possible to create something here and to persist. 10 years is a good long time. It's not just something that just landed there and disappears 4 days later. It's not just a caravan that passes through. It's also a festival that's managed to plunge its roots into this community, thanks to the regional government, the regional authorities, thanks to the schools working with young people, with small children, to help them to discover the professions that are involved in creating all of these shows that you can watch online or on TV, that there are actual jobs, actual people who do things, and actual sectors where the French are very good, that the French are very good at. And maybe it can help them to understand that behind the fiction there is a French touch and many professionals involved. And I think these Fontainebleau roots are a fantastic thing, because the festival returns and expands every year, and there are a number of events in between editions, and all of that is also very important to help the local population understand how these types of events are important. So Marie Baraco is very tenacious. I told you that of course the history of the city is very old. We have seen every king of France pass through here since the 12th century. So 10 years doesn't take very much to impress us. We have had 34 kings and 2 emperors. And now, thanks to Série, we have a queen. And as it was said about her, of course, we had the Sun King in Versailles. We have the Sun Queen here, Marie Baraco, in Fontainebleau. Let me call her up again. The Sun Queen of Fontainebleau.
Marie, en modeste hommage.
And as a modest tribute to all this energy, I know you don't have any tears left, but maybe you've got some laughter and some smiles left for us as well. So I'm delighted to offer you this modest little bouquet, which is basically not at all on a par with all the energy you put into this. And all of that is well worth a kiss. So thanks to all of you, thanks to all the team, thanks to Marie. Thank you, Frederic, for that magnificent bouquet of flowers. It's our pleasure now to welcome in this magnificent chateau the new president of the Chateau of Fontainebleau, Marie-Christine Labordette. Good evening, everybody. It's very hard to come in after the mayor. We're used to it. We've been married to each other for the last 800 years between the town and the chateau. It's a marriage made in granite. And you can resist quite a lot of things, even a bouquet of flowers that given to somebody else, which I can join and say what a pleasure it is to welcome Seri and all the professionals here this evening as partners at the Chateau, which has been a partner, in fact, for the last 10 years, even though I've been here for only 4 months. It's a pleasure. I'm delighted to carry on in this wonderful tradition. Now, Seri has been celebrated, and I'd like to say how much the resilience of the Chateau is important, in fact. So many years hasn't worn down its charm, so feel free to come along and shoot in the Chateau. You'll see this perhaps in the Leonardo series. It was in Fontainebleau that Francis I hung Mona Lisa in his toilet. He wasn't taking a bath when he came out, but it was a rather damp royal apartment, which may not have really helped the preservation of a wooden panel. It's made of poplar tree, which may explain why, in fact, this painting never leaves the Louvre, in fact, for conservation regions. But the French career of Mona Lisa started off in Fontainebleau, and as you may not know, Philip the Fair, of one of the first accursed kings, beginning of, in fact, a historic series, in fact, was born and died in Fontainebleau, that, of course, Napoleon I bid farewell, in fact, and Napoleon III was here as well. So if you feel like discovering the marvels of the Chateau, we're here to help you after a series at Versailles, a series at Fontainebleau. That's what we really hope for, and we hope it'll be less than 20 years' time. Thank you very much indeed, Marie-Christine Labordette. So, Seri wouldn't exist without the faultless support of the Île-de-France, Greater Paris region. Please welcome a regional councillor and president of the Culture Committee from the regional authority. Mr. Mayor, Madam President of the Chateau, founders, ladies and gentlemen, producers, directors, people who love culture, art, and cinema, and series, well, how can we say? It's a wonderful joy to be with you this evening to represent the president of the region, Miss Valérie Pécresse, who is delighted to see you. You've brought me here to this wonderful theater, and in fact, for months and months, our cultural venues have been closed. So it just goes to show how much I'm touched when I'm in a theater. And I want to make the most of this to say to Marie how much I admire her for her tenacity, her enthusiasm, her strength. But despite all these years, months of COVID, she's managed to keep this going in a dematerialized way, because I myself could see on Facebook some encounters, and in fact, series are part of our day-to-day life. More and more so, by the way. So work, the equality, the scenes that make it possible for us to dream and identify with these. In addition to that, and in fact, the young people, everything that we hold dear, the emergence and facilitating culture for all, impacting young talent as well. So series make it possible to access culture and make it more widespread. And we in the Greater Paris region, and I am the president of the Cinema Support Fund. We've just been, maybe there'll be a change for this, because we've just been voted in. But I'm a huge fan of scenarios for cinema and series. We've made the Greater Paris region the first region for cinema. It's a budget of 22 million we've got, and it'll help series thanks to what we'll be able to do to review things and redo our strategy and help with up to 3 seasons, in fact, which shows just how important cinema, series, and culture contribute and are a pillar of the foundations of our region. And as if we did, even if we didn't need this, in addition to the prestige of this for the culture, cinema, series are basically the appeal of our economic activity. The president of the Chateau said a lot of series are produced in the Paris region. It's actually 50% of the series produced in the Paris region are here. So when we say produced or shot in regions, it also means that we're talking about the economic appeal, so creating jobs. So there's no need to add that we have every reason to be with you to help for this 10th series. What else can I say to Mary and her team? The region and the regional authorities will always be there, and you've got a mayor who knows how to uphold the interests of his town, and the chateau will always be by his side to enable culture to carry on living, to make it possible to share, to exchange with directors, with producers, with writers, with actors as well, so that we can prompt and give a taste for passion, for series, for cinema. So all I can say is long live culture. And once again, well done, Mary, for everything you're doing. Well done to your team as well. And let me also say hello to Christelle Sandré, who's with us. Thank you all, and have a great season. Thank you, Anne-Louise Vesadieu. Before we welcome the creator of Leonardo and some of his team, we'd like to have the head of programming in France Television, Stéphane Sidbon Gomez, our partner in series. Please, thank you for joining us, Stéphane. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say very quickly how proud I am personally to be able to be with you here at this meeting. 6 years ago, I joined France Télévisions. There are people in the room, Jean-François Baillet, I can see on the first row here. If you understand something, I think there's one place and one place only. It's the Series Festival. That's the only place where you'll find creators, authors, producers meet up for 3 days to spend a friendly moment discussing new products and inventing them. As he's a producer, of course, I didn't believe him. And he's a particularly good salesman. I even believed him even less. But a few days later, I met one of my best friends, a talented scriptwriter, and he said, you know where I'm going? You've got to come with me. It's Fontainebleau. It's to go to series, and that's where, really, I discovered the best series in the world, in Europe and everywhere. In fact, that's where I get to discuss things with my colleagues. It happens once a year. It doesn't happen so much in a profession such as ours. And that's where I believed him. I followed this friend. I turned up, and I discovered a very unusual world, a world that you've managed to create, that Mary managed to create with her team. And I think I really want to congratulate you from the bottom of my heart and tell you how proud France Télévisions is to be here for its 10th anniversary, to be with this festival, and be certain that you'll know that we'll always be the partners, loyal, faithful partners for you. And that's the personal message I wanted to share. Another message is to send the apologies of Delphine Arnaud, who couldn't be with us today. She's also, in addition to being president of France Télévisions, she's also president of the European Union of Public Television Services that has its annual general meeting today and tomorrow that she chairs. She would have loved to have been with us, as she loves coming every year, because it's her fight as president of this union to have a genuine space for creating in Europe, of co-production in Europe. Series is a fantastic dream. 2 years ago, we had another amazing dream as well. I see Marie-Collie, who's here with us in the room. In fact, we've all got these fantastic projects, but we've got these series, and I recall, in fact, we can see, in fact, that there are public televisions and what have you, German ones, Spanish ones, Italian ones, and once again, we managed to do something together. Now, these producers, you know, they can be very critical. And they say, yeah, that's really out of date. That's pudding from the 1990s. We'll never get there. But we managed to do this. We call it the Alliance, and we're making series together. The first series we announced is called Leonardo. And let's have this series about this. There isn't a European character more important than this guy. And this is the series you're going to discover this evening. I think it had 7.3 million viewers on Rai. And in fact, as we pointed out, with our friends in Italy and Spain and Sony, it's a little unusual for us. It's a French series. It won't be in French. There is some dubbing. But it's a very important moment for us, in fact, so that we can learn this and we can produce and present this series to you. As you know, in fact, by the end of the year, you'll see it, in fact, on France Télévisions. It's a new frontier. It's a new horizon we wish to go towards, sending French television series to travel and creating a European series, in fact, and we can see somebody here who's steering this, in fact, in international development in France Télévisions. And we hope that in the years to come at Series we can present new and also very fine co-productions. So excellent 10th anniversary. Enjoy. Thank you, Stéphane. Now let's welcome the creator, one of the co-creators. It's Frank Sputnitz of Leonardo, along with the international director for fiction, with Nathalie Biancoli from France Télévisions, Blanco Guiezo, the arts delegate for international acquisitions, and also our friends Hugo Becker. Please welcome them on the stage, all four. Franz Sputnitz, Nathalie Biancoli, Hugo Becker, and Benoît Marquisio. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Hugo. How are you doing? We can take the masks. Yes, we have social distancing here. Okay, so we'll discover Leonardo. It's the first fantastic series with Frank Sputnitz. In fact, I'm not mistaken in saying he's already turned up in one of your productions, the Medici Masters of Florence. Is that where you started off with this idea of this series? If I speak in English, I'll make a lot of mistakes. So it's easier for me in English. Can I speak in English? You okay with this? Do we have translation? Yes, we have translation. I fully understand, but speaking French is difficult.
Oui, excusez-moi.
Apologies.
Je vous en prie, Franck.
Merci. I had done the Medici with Lux Vitae in Rome for 3 seasons, and I did not want to go back to the Renaissance again. I felt I had done everything there was to do about the Renaissance. And then Leonardo da Vinci, I thought it's even harder to do a show about an artist than a banking family. The banking family, at least they killed people, right? But to do a drama series about an artist, and the greatest artist, you know, one of the towering figures of all civilization, I thought it was very daunting. So I said no. And I turned it down, and I said I wouldn't do it. And they came back a year later and said, look, we have The Alliance, we have Steve Thompson, this wonderful British writer. And I said, okay, I will try it. But it was just as difficult as I thought it would be. It was very hard.
Ah oui, c'était effectivement un...
So it really was a challenge. You faced it, all of you, together, and others as well with you. And I feel we should actually listen to them, because we've got some people. We have Pierre Miaretti, Steve Thompson, the co-writer from the UK, and the producer, Luca Banabei. We'll listen to all of them, and then we'll carry on talking. Alors, des vidéos sur Leonardo.
Why he's an ideal protagonist for a story with an international production appeal. We followed the entire production process, and it was our initiative to bring the project to the attention of European Alliance, as we were persuaded that it was in line with the value and goals held by this European partnership. The challenge was to find a narrative style with a genre appeal that could entice a wider audience while at the same time be compatible with Leonardo's personality, life, and works. Series.
Working with Frank Spotnitz was a joy. Obviously, I knew his work, and I'd seen his work. He's done some brilliant TV drama over the years. But I was offered this job sharing Leonardo, sharing the role of showrunner and sharing the role of scriptwriter with him. And we'd never worked together before, but actually it was a fantastic experience. Frank is very open and very willing to collaborate. And the show really came out of conversations between the two of us. I think it was a very daunting challenge. First of all, because Leonardo is not simply a famous artist, he's also a brilliant inventor and scientist and astronomer and mathematician. And I think when we saw all of this material, this extraordinary biography at the beginning, we said, well, there's not one show you could write. There are 10 different shows, maybe 100 different shows. You could go in so many directions because his life and his work was so rich. So we started to focus in particular on two things. The first was the art, which I suppose is the reason that most people would know him, and the incredible dramas and stories that surround the art. And there are 8 episodes, and each of the 8 episodes centers on one particular piece of art. And sometimes the choices we've made might seem surprising. Some of the pieces of art we've looked at are very, very famous. Some of them are less famous, and some of them were actually unfinished. But each of the pieces we chose had a really interesting story attached to it, and the struggle to create it was what led us through the drama. So that was really the spine of the idea, looking at Leonardo and the history of 8 particular pieces of art.
That's why I'm so grateful with all my partners along this really difficult path in order to make a wonderful script, in order to make wonderful shooting, in order to make wonderful post-production, post-production, music, light. Our director was using only candlelight. I've been fighting a lot with him. And because, candlelight, as you know, it's really professional, know that it's really difficult. But it was beautiful, beautiful. Again, he was seeking for beauty. Our director, Dan Persigal, was seeking for beauty, for perfection. Maybe sometimes too much, but director. And even my partner was seeking for beauty.
Seeking for beauty. Sometimes it's too much for a producer. Il y avait cette idée-là de chercher la beauté.
Was this idea of looking for beauty and perfection? Basically, this is what Leonardo da Vinci represents.
Da Vinci, right? He's the standard of beauty. He's what we think of when we think of beauty. And so, yes, it's absolutely true. The director and the cinematographer were really obsessive about trying to capture the feel of Leonardo's work. And also, when you see the show, you'll see we not only show many of his famous works, but you see them being created. So you had to recreate the art in stages. And there's some work, there's a very famous statue of a horse that we don't actually know what it looks like. So we had to play Leonardo da Vinci in the evolution of his art and in the creation of his art and make it believable. And if that had failed, the whole series would have failed. So it was quite a challenge. I mean, I think we were all appropriately humble and cowed by the enormity of this undertaking.
C'est ce qui est passionnant d'ailleurs de voir une œuvre en train de se créer parce que
What's interesting is witnessing the mystery of art, which is always a very exciting subject, of course. Benoît Marquisio, the producer, was talking about directors, Daniel Percival and Alexis Sweet, if I'm not mistaken, on a quest for beauty, lighting with candles, if I got that correctly. It must have been an incredible challenge. Yeah, especially the manner in which, as Frank was saying, the manner in which the show was written, there was really, it was really trying to shine light on a particular aspect of Leonardo's talent. And when following up the script with Hélène Saillon, who's on our team, and kudos to her because it was a tough development, but you could already see in the manner in which it was written and the manner in which Frank and his team were driving the story that it really needed a visual incarnation. And when we got the first rushes, we were really reassured. Stéphane talked about a new frontier. That was really the case. We wanted to do something of a kind that had never been seen before. So, of course, they're all the historical aspects, the international cast, the costumes. We're not there. I'm not cinematographer. I'm not the director. So we're waiting for the first rushes. And very quickly, it reassured us because, of course, there's Leonardo. There's everything he did. There's all of the decors, the setting, the sets, which are most of them are actually in situ. And then everything crystallized when it was written. And we were quickly much more relaxed about it. Nathalie Biancoli, Maria Pierre was telling us about Leonardo as the ideal protagonist for a European production. So, yes, of course, he's an Italian, but he died in France. He has a very European or international aspect. It's the European Renaissance.
Oui, c'est tout à fait la Renaissance européenne. C'est
Absolutely, it's the European Renaissance. Stéphane, who's here, and Delphine really wanted to talk about him. So it was obvious to us that he's obviously a worldwide celebrity. We'll use the Leonardo as the title because everyone knows Leonardo. And it seemed very natural to go into a co-production with Rai, with Lux, who worked very hard, but then it was not just peaceful days with Frank and the team, because of course there's all of the editing also, which is a crucial step. And this was right in the middle of COVID, as I was saying this afternoon. I mean, kudos to the writers and to the producers and the actors, because Hugo's with us here. A lot of work was put into that, and it was very different. So, Hugo, we're actually not going to see you because you only appear in episode 3. We're not actually going to spoil this, but how does international shooting work? So, of course, you have some experience in that, but how does it feel like to work with actors from various nationalities? Well, I was fortunate enough to work for the BBC and for a channel in Spain, a network in Spain, and in the US too. But this was the first time I was actually acting in English for a French production, which was actually pretty, was actually great, because these are amazing opportunities for us actors to take part, to be involved in international productions without feeling that we're betraying our own homeland. So it was the first time, and I'm really delighted that there are such ambitious projects being born in Europe. And God knows that in the first days of shooting, it's actually a huge show. Of course, I've worked on other big projects, but that was particularly impressive. And there was a set in which it took me almost 2 days to notice that it was actually a set, but I thought it was a real village. And then I see a kind of a hole in the wall at one point, and it was all fiberglass. And as we used to change, to move from one set to another, no, it was actually pretty amazing. And meeting other actors from the UK, from Italy, it's very enriching. Everyone, they all have their own way of working, and I think the mix is really interesting. Frank, do you meet your actors at any moment? Had you met Hugo Becker? Had you met the other actors or not?
Excuse me, I saw them on tape, but we never, I was never on set when he was on set. So I've seen you a million times, you know, in editing, but I was not on set, especially after COVID. Then I wasn't really in Italy at all. We had to stop in March of last year because of COVID. And we were meant to go up to northern Italy where the outbreak began in Europe, of course. And fortunately, we had begun building a small backlot before the pandemic began. And when we shut down in March, we just continued building that backlot, which allowed us to resume production in June and finish without interruption in August on the backlot. So there's a mix of location and backlot filming, but there's more backlot filming than we intended because of the pandemic. I don't think you'll be aware of it watching the series. I don't think you'll be able to tell what's location and what's backlot because it was done very, very well.
Est-ce qu'on arrive, quand on travaille comme ça sur un personnage comme Leonardo Vinci,
when you're working on a character such as Leonardo da Vinci, do you get a sense that you can pierce, that you can unveil the secret of genius?
Discovered is he is impossible to understand. He is an enigma. Genius is always impossible to understand or explain, and in fact, you don't want to explain genius because you reduce it, right? It can't be explained. But Steve and I read every biography we could get our hands on, and you have the data points of his life, but they don't explain who he was. And you don't have a drama unless you can explain who he was. And so there's a fiction in this series, which is that Leonardo is arrested for murder, which he never was, involving a woman who really did exist, who was his muse, who he drew, who posed for one of his most famous lost paintings. We know nothing about her other than she was important to him. So we made the decision, which Natalie and our partners at RAI supported, to imagine who she might have been. And this became a key, this relationship to this woman who we know was real, but that's all we know about her, to understanding Leonardo. Who she might have been, what she might have meant to him, became a key to unlocking his character and getting at the human truth of this genius without reducing. And I think he remains an enigma, but I think what was moving to Steve and to me especially was the sacrifice he made to create art. He was a perfectionist, and he suffered, and there are many things he did not complete because his standards for himself were so high. And we just thought, what would drive somebody to torture themselves so much to create something so beautiful? And hopefully the series, you know, attempts to answer that question.
Hugo.
J'ai envie d'ajouter parce que dans ce que j'avais lu et dans ce que j'ai vu,
I wanted to add, although of course it's semi-fictional, the actual triggers that allowed Leonardo to perhaps discover some facets of his own art, his own personality, and then of course there's his rational genius and his artistic genius. But so I'm not going to spoil it. I can't even tell you about my character because that would be spoiling it for you. But I think that's pretty smart, because someone who has such a full life and who's experienced so many things, it's obvious that you're the result of your experience, of the people you meet, of the environment around you. And he must have met some pretty amazing people. And of course, there's a degree of fiction in this, but I think it tells the story quite well of all of these important steps in his life, how he could have been intellectually awakened or stimulated.
There was a massive amount of research, especially into the creation of the art. So the frame is fictitious, but the creation of the art itself, there's an awful lot of very detailed and well-researched, art history in this show. And that was another ambition of ours, which I think Steve alluded to, was we wanted you to be entertained, first of all, right? And we wanted young people to watch the show, which they have, I'm very happy to say, and be engaged by it. But also to feel like you're learning something and understanding something about why is he great? Why does this matter after 500 years? And then ultimately, not many people, but some people will go and actually read about Leonardo, or will go back to the Louvre and look at the Mona Lisa with different eyes. And if we've done that, we've done something more than a television series.
Une dernière question, Frank Spotnitz. S'il revenait...
Final question, Frank. If Leonardo da Vinci returned in the 21st century, would he be a showrunner? He said, what makes the nobility of something? It's its eternity. So he might still be around and might be a showrunner.
Tokyo is a showrunner. It's an artist studio, and Leonardo was one of the writers in the writer's room. And then, yes, Leonardo becomes a showrunner too, although we don't really show much of that in our series. You see one character or two characters who are part of his writer's room. But yes, they were studios in the Renaissance. That's the way they created their art, collaboratively.
Merci beaucoup. Merci infiniment. Merci Frank Spotnitz. Merci.
Thank you so much, Frank Spotnitz, Nathalie Biancoli, Benoît Marquisio, Hugo Becker, for coming here to Fontainebleau. So we're now going to discover episode 1, an exclusive sneak preview of this new show, Leonardo. So best wishes to the X-Files main characters.